The stagecoach wheels locked solid in ice 2 miles outside San Elizario, Texas, and Deanna Zimmerman knew her wedding day had just become her funeral. She pressed her gloved hands against the frosted window, watching her breath cloud the glass as the driver shouted something unintelligible through the howling wind. February 1878 had brought an unseasonable blizzard to West Texas, the kind of freak weather that old-timers would talk about for decades. Deanna had been traveling for 3 weeks from Philadelphia to marry Gerald Hutchins, a cattle baron she had never met but whose letters promised security and respectability. Her father's debts had made sure she had no other choice. The stagecoach lurched violently to one side. Deanna grabbed the leather strap, her cream-colored traveling dress bunching around her knees. Through the window, she could see nothing but white. The February sun was somewhere behind those clouds, but it might as well have been midnight. Miss Zimmerman. The driver's weathered face appeared at the window, his mustache crusted with ice. "We are stuck solid. The horses cannot pull through this drift. I am riding ahead to San Elizario for help. You stay inside and keep warm." "Wait, you cannot leave me here alone." But he was already gone. She heard the sound of a horse whinnying, then hoofbeats fading into the storm. Deanna pulled her wool cloak tighter around her shoulders. The small brass foot warmer had gone cold an hour ago. She could see her breath inside the coach now. She had no idea how long she sat there. Minutes felt like hours. The wind rocked the stagecoach like a cradle, but there was nothing comforting about it. Her feet were numb inside her buttoned boots. She tried to remember what Gerald's last letter had said. Something about his ranch, about the grand house he had built, about how pleased he would be to have a refined Eastern wife. Nothing about love, nothing about wanting her specifically. Just the arrangement her father had made before he died, leaving her with nothing but debts and this single promise of escape. The bride nobody wanted, traveling to marry a man who wanted a wife the way he might want a new piece of furniture. Deanna was 22 years old, plain-faced if she was being honest with herself, with brown hair that never held a curl and gray eyes that her mother had once called unremarkable. She had no fortune, no connections, and no prospects. Gerald Hutchins was 45 and needed a wife to manage his household and give him heirs. It was a business transaction, nothing more. The cold was seeping into her bones now. She knew she should stay in the coach, but she also knew that people froze to death waiting for rescue that never came. She had read about it in the newspapers. Travelers found dead in their carriages, perfectly preserved by the cold. Deanna made a decision. She wrapped her cloak as tightly as possible, tied her bonnet firmly under her chin, and pushed open the stagecoach door. The wind nearly ripped it from her hands. Snow stung her face like tiny needles. She could barely see 3 feet in front of her, but there in the distance was that a light. She stumbled forward, her skirts dragging in the snow, her boots filled with ice. The light flickered and danced, and she could not tell if it was real or if the cold was making her see things. Her lungs burned with each breath of frozen air. Deanna fell once, twice, 3 times. Each time it was harder to get up. The light was closer now, or maybe she was hallucinating. She could not feel her hands anymore, could not feel her face. Strong arms caught her before she fell a 4th time. "What in the name of God are you doing out here?" The voice was male, rough with concern. Deanna tried to answer, but her teeth were chattering too violently. She found herself being lifted, carried. She had a vague impression of a broad chest, a sheepskin coat, the smell of leather and tobacco. "Stay with me now. My cabin is just ahead. Stay with me." She must have lost consciousness because the next thing she knew, she was lying on a rough wooden floor in front of a roaring fire. Hands were removing her wet boots, unwrapping her frozen cloak. A blanket, warm and smelling of horse and cedar, was being tucked around her. "Can you hear me, miss?" Deanna forced her eyes open. The man kneeling beside her was young, maybe 30 at most, with dark hair that fell past his collar and eyes the color of good whiskey. His face was tanned and weathered, with a scar along his left cheekbone. He was not handsome in the conventional sense, but there was something about him that made her breath catch, and not just from the cold. "The Stagecoach," she managed to say through chattering teeth. "I saw it stuck in the drift. I was heading out to check on it when I saw you stumbling around in the snow like a ghost. You are lucky I was looking out my window, or you would be dead by now." He wrapped another blanket around her shoulders. "What possessed you to leave the coach?" "I thought I would freeze to death waiting." "You nearly froze to death walking." He stood and moved to a small stove in the corner of the one-room cabin. "I am making coffee. You need to get warm from the inside out." Diana looked around the cabin. It was small but well kept, with a narrow bed in one corner, a rough-hewn table and 2 chairs, shelves holding various supplies and not much else. A saddle and tack hung on the wall. Through the single window she could see nothing but white. "I am Owen York," the man said, bringing her a tin cup of steaming coffee. "I work the Hutchins Ranch. Well, I did work there until 3 days ago." Diana's cold, numbed fingers wrapped around the cup. "You worked for Gerald Hutchins." Owen's expression darkened. "You know him?" "I am supposed to marry him. Today, actually, or I was supposed to before the storm." She took a sip of the coffee. It was strong and bitter and the best thing she had ever tasted. "I am Diana Zimmerman." Owen sat back on his heels, studying her with those whiskey-colored eyes. "So you are the mail-order bride. We heard he sent for a woman from back east." Something in his tone made her defensive. "It is a perfectly respectable arrangement. I am sure it is." He stood and moved to the window. "But you should know what kind of man you are marrying." "I know enough. He is wealthy, established, and willing to provide for me. That is all I need to know." Owen turned to face her. "He is also cruel, dishonest, and mean-spirited. That is why I quit. I could not work for a man who beats his horses and cheats his workers out of their wages." Deanna felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "He beats his horses, among other things." Owen crossed his arms. "But I suppose that is none of my business. You are a grown woman making your own choices." They sat in uncomfortable silence for a moment. Deanna sipped her coffee and tried not to think about what Owen had said. She had no other options. Where would she go if she did not marry Gerald? She had no money, no family, nowhere to turn. "The storm should pass by tomorrow morning," Owen said, his voice gentler now. "I will take you into San Elizario then. Your future husband is probably worried sick about you." "Probably worried about his investment," Deanna muttered. Owen almost smiled. "At least you have no illusions about it." "I have no illusions about anything, Mr. York. I am a woman alone in the world with no resources. Gerald Hutchins is my only option for survival. That is the truth of it. There are always other options," says the man with freedom to quit his job and live in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. Deanna set down her coffee cup. "You do not know what it is like to be powerless." Owen was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "You are right, I do not. I apologize." Diana had not expected an apology. She studied him more carefully. Despite his rough appearance, there was something decent about Owen York, something honest. It made her sad for reasons she could not quite name. "You should sleep," Owen said. "You can have the bed. I will sleep on the floor by the fire." "I cannot take your bed." "You can and you will. You have just survived nearly freezing to death. You need rest." He pulled a bedroll from under the bed and began arranging it on the floor. "Do not argue with me, Miss Zimmerman. I am stubborn as a mule when I want to be." Diana was too exhausted to argue. She made her way to the narrow bed, still wrapped in blankets. The mattress was thin but clean. She could hear Owen moving around the cabin, banking the fire, checking the window. The sounds were oddly comforting. "Mr. York," she said into the darkness. "Yes, thank you for saving my life." A pause. "Then you are welcome." Diana closed her eyes and fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. She woke to the smell of bacon frying. Pale morning light streamed through the window and the howling wind had stopped. Diana sat up, disoriented for a moment, then remembered where she was. Owen stood at the stove, his back to her, cooking breakfast. "Good morning," she said, her voice rough with sleep. He turned. "Good morning. The storm passed about an hour ago. We should be able to make it to San Elizario after you eat." Diana felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. She pushed it aside and stood, smoothing down her wrinkled dress. "I must look a fright. You look like someone who survived a blizzard." Owen handed her a plate with bacon, beans, and a thick slice of bread. "That is nothing to be ashamed of." They ate in silence. Diana found herself sneaking glances at Owen. In the morning light, she could see that he was younger than she had first thought, probably no more than 28 or 29. His hands were strong and work roughened. He moved with the easy confidence of a man comfortable in his own skin. "Why did you really quit working for Mr. Hutchins?" she asked. Owen set down his fork. "I told you, he is not a good man. But there must have been something specific, something that made you walk away." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "There was a young Mexican boy who worked in the stables, maybe 13 years old. Last week, he accidentally left a gate open and one of Hutchins' prize horses got out. The boy managed to get the horse back, no harm done, but Hutchins beat him anyway. Beat him so badly the boy could not walk for 2 days. Owen's jaw tightened. "I stepped in to stop it and Hutchins fired me on the spot, said I was insubordinate." Diana felt sick. "Where is the boy now?" "He ran away. I gave him what money I had and told him to head to El Paso, find work there. Hutchins would have killed him eventually. And you have been living here ever since. This is my place. I have been building it up slowly, saving money to buy some cattle of my own. I only worked for Hutchins to earn extra money." He looked at her directly. "Miss Zimmerman, I am telling you this because you need to know what you are walking into. If you marry Gerald Hutchins, you will be under his control. If he treats a horse or a child that way, how do you think he will treat a wife?" Diana stood and walked to the window. The landscape was transformed by snow, glittering white under a pale blue sky. It was beautiful and deadly at the same time, like her situation. "I have nowhere else to go," she said quietly. "No money, no family, no skills that anyone would pay for. What would you have me do, Mr. York?" "Live in the streets," she heard him move behind her. "You could find work. Lots of women do." "What kind of work? Washing laundry for pennies, sewing until my eyes give out, or perhaps you are suggesting I work in a saloon?" She turned to face him. "I am not ungrateful for what you have told me. But knowing Gerald Hutchins is a bad man does not change my circumstances." Owen stepped closer. "What if there was another option?" "What option?" He seemed to be wrestling with something. Finally, he said, "You could stay here, with me." Diana's heart lurched in her chest. "Mr. York, I barely know you." "I know that. I am not suggesting anything improper." His ears were turning red. "I mean we could get married. A real marriage. I know I do not have much, just this cabin and some savings, but I am a hard worker. I could provide for you. And I swear to you I would never raise a hand to you. I would treat you with respect." Diana stared at him. "You are asking me to marry you. I know it is sudden, but you need a husband and I could use a wife. It makes practical sense." He ran a hand through his hair. "And I will be honest with you, Miss Zimmerman. I have been alone for a long time. It would be nice to have someone to share this life with, someone to build something with. You do not even know me. I know you were brave enough to walk through a blizzard rather than wait to die. I know you are honest about your situation. I know you have no illusions about the world." He paused. "And I know that I would rather have you here than know you are married to a man like Gerald Hutchins." Diana's mind was reeling. This was insane. She had known this man for less than a day. But she had never met Gerald Hutchins at all, and she had been willing to marry him. At least Owen York had saved her life. At least he seemed kind. "This is madness," she whispered. "Maybe. But sometimes mad decisions turn out to be the best ones." He stepped back, giving her space. "I am not going to pressure you. I will take you to San Elizario and you can marry Hutchins as planned. But if you want a different life, the offer stands." Diana looked around the small cabin. It was rough and simple, nothing like the grand house Gerald had described in his letters. But it was clean and honest, built by a man's own hands, like Owen himself. "Can I think about it?" she asked. "Of course. We have a 2-hour ride ahead of us. You can decide along the way." Owen saddled his horse, a sturdy bay gelding named Buck, and helped Diana up behind him. She had never ridden like this before, sitting astride with her arms around a man's waist. It felt scandalous and thrilling at the same time. The ride into San Elizario was quiet. Diana held onto Owen's coat as Buck picked his way carefully through the snow-covered trail. The sun was fully up now, making the white landscape almost painfully bright. Diana found herself acutely aware of Owen's body in front of her, the way his muscles moved as he guided the horse, the warmth radiating through his coat. She thought about his offer. Marriage to a stranger, but one who had already shown her more kindness than anyone had in years. A poor man, but an honest one. A hard life, but one she would face with someone who seemed decent and good. Or marriage to Gerald Hutchins, with all his money and cruelty. As they crested a hill, San Elizario came into view. It was a small town, mostly adobe buildings clustered around a central plaza. Even from a distance, Diana could see people moving about, clearing snow, tending to animals. Life going on despite the blizzard. "There is the hotel," Owen said, pointing to a 2-story building on the main street. "Hutchins keeps rooms there when he is in town. That is probably where you were supposed to meet him." Diana's stomach twisted. In a few minutes, she would have to make a choice that would determine the rest of her life. "Owen," she said, using his first name for the first time. "Yes, if I agreed to marry you, what would our life be like?" He was quiet for a moment. "Honest, simple. I would work hard to build up my herd, maybe expand the cabin. You would keep house, cook, help with whatever needed doing. It would not be easy and it would not be fancy. But it would be ours, built together. And I promise you, Diana, I would do my best to make you happy." The way he said her name made something warm bloom in her chest. "I need to see him," she said suddenly. "I need to see Gerald Hutchins before I make my decision. I need to look him in the eye." Owen nodded. "That is fair." They rode into town, attracting curious stares from the townspeople. Owen stopped Buck in front of the hotel and helped Diana dismount. Her legs were shaky from the long ride. "I will be right here," Owen said. "Whatever you decide." Diana took a deep breath and walked into the hotel. The lobby was warm and smelled of wood smoke and coffee. A thin man with spectacles stood behind the desk. "Excuse me," Diana said. "I am looking for Gerald Hutchins. I am Diana Zimmerman." The man's eyes widened. "Miss Zimmerman, Mr. Hutchins has been worried sick. He is in his room, number 7, upstairs." Diana climbed the stairs, her heart pounding. She knocked on the door marked 7. "Come in," a voice barked. She opened the door and came face to face with her intended husband for the first time. Gerald Hutchins was a large man, well dressed in expensive clothes that could not hide his paunch. His face was red and fleshy, his eyes small and calculating. He looked her up and down like she was a horse he was considering purchasing. "So you finally arrived," he said. "I heard the stagecoach got stuck. I was about to send men out to retrieve you." Retrieve. Like she was a piece of lost luggage. "I am here now," Deanna said. "You look worse for wear. I expected someone more presentable." He circled her slowly. "But I suppose you will do. You are young enough to bear children and you seem healthy. We will marry this afternoon and head to the ranch tomorrow." Deanna's mouth went dry, just like that. What else did you expect? Romance. "Love," he laughed, a harsh sound. "This is a business arrangement, Miss Zimmerman. I need a wife to run my household and give me heirs. You need a home and financial security. Let us not pretend it is anything more than that." "What if I have changed my mind?" His expression darkened. "Changed your mind? I have already paid your passage from Philadelphia. I have made arrangements for the wedding. You are obligated to follow through. I owe you nothing. Your father made a contract. You are honor-bound to fulfill it. My father is dead and I am my own person." Deanna stood straighter. "I am not going to marry you, Mr. Hutchins." His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, squeezing hard. "You ungrateful little wretch. Do you think you have other options? Who else would want a penniless nobody like you? Let go of me." "I will let go of you when I am good and ready." He squeezed harder, and Deanna gasped in pain. "You will marry me, and you will do as you are told, or I will make sure everyone in this town knows you are a woman who does not keep her word. You will never find a husband anywhere." The door slammed open. Owen strode in, his face dark with anger. "Let her go." Gerald released Deanna's wrist and stepped back. "York, I should have known. Did you fill her head with lies about me? I told her the truth about you." Owen moved to Deanna's side. "Are you all right?" She nodded, rubbing her wrist. It was already beginning to bruise. "This is none of your business, York. This is between me and my intended. She is not your intended anymore." Owen put his arm around Deanna's shoulders. "She is going to marry me." Deanna looked up at him in surprise. His jaw was set, his eyes hard. He was staring down Gerald like a man facing an enemy. "You," Gerald laughed. "You are a nobody, a drifter with a shack in the wilderness. What could you possibly offer her more than you could ever understand?" Owen looked down at Deanna. "If you will have me." In that moment, looking into Owen's honest eyes, feeling the protective strength of his arm around her shoulders, seeing the way he had immediately come to her defense, Deanna knew what her answer was. "Yes," she said firmly. "I will marry you, Owen York." Gerald's face turned purple. "You are both fools. You will regret this, Zimmerman. You are throwing away a comfortable life for poverty and hardship. I would rather be poor with a good man than comfortable with a cruel one." Deanna took Owen's hand. "We are leaving now." They walked out of the hotel together, leaving Gerald Hutchins sputtering threats behind them. Once outside, Deanna started to shake. Owen pulled her close. "That took courage," he said softly. "I was terrified. Being brave does not mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you are scared." He tilted her chin up. "Are you sure about this? You are choosing a hard life." "I am choosing an honest life. That is all I want." Owen smiled, a real smile that transformed his whole face. "Then let us go find a preacher." They found Father Miguel at the small Catholic church on the edge of town. He was an elderly man with kind eyes who listened to their story without judgment. "You wish to marry immediately?" he asked. "Yes, Father," Owen said. "I know it is unusual, but we are certain." Father Miguel looked at Deanna. "Is this truly what you want, my child?" "It is," Deanna said, and meant it. "Very well. I will need 2 witnesses." Owen went outside and returned with two townspeople, a middle-aged woman and her husband who had been passing by. They looked curious, but agreed to help. The ceremony was simple and quick. Deanna stood beside Owen in her wrinkled traveling dress, without flowers or music or any of the trappings she had once imagined for her wedding day. But when Owen took her hand and repeated his vows in a steady voice, when he slipped a simple silver band onto her finger, when Father Miguel pronounced them husband and wife, Diana felt something she had not expected: hope. Owen kissed her softly, just a brush of lips, but Deanna felt it all the way to her toes. "Hello, Mrs. York," he said. "Hello, husband." They thanked Father Miguel and walked out into the bright afternoon. Deanna was now a married woman, bound to a man she had known for less than a day. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt right. "We should get supplies before we head back," Owen said. "If we are going to make this work, we will need food and other necessities." They went to the general store, where Owen carefully counted out his money for flour, coffee, beans, salt pork, and other staples. Deanna noticed how carefully he budgeted, how he put back items they could do without. This was her life now, watching every penny. The store owner, a friendly woman named Mrs. Chen, noticed Deanna's wedding ring. "Are you two newlyweds?" "As of an hour ago," Owen said, smiling. "How wonderful! Let me give you some honey as a wedding gift." She pressed a jar into Diana's hands, "for sweetness in your new life together." "Thank you," Deanna said, touched by the kindness of a stranger. They loaded the supplies onto Buck and began the ride back to the cabin. This time, Deanna held Owen even closer, feeling the solid reality of her choice. She was married now. This cowboy, this good man who had saved her life and offered her a different future, was her husband. When they reached the cabin, Owen helped her down and stood there awkwardly. "I suppose we should talk about sleeping arrangements." Diana felt her cheeks warm. "Yes, I suppose we should." "I meant what I said about treating you with respect. We can take this slow. I can keep sleeping on the floor until you are comfortable with me." He looked at his boots. "I know this is sudden for you." Deanna thought about it. She could insist on propriety on a long courtship within their marriage. But she had also chosen this. She had chosen him. And there was something about Owen York that made her feel safe in a way she had never felt before. "We are married," she said softly. "We can share the bed." As husband and wife. Owen looked up, surprise and something else in his eyes. "Are you sure?" "I am sure." That night, after a simple dinner of beans and cornbread, after Owen banked the fire and checked the animals in the small lean-to behind the cabin, after Deanna changed into the nightgown from her trunk that Owen had retrieved from the stagecoach earlier, they lay down together in the narrow bed. Owen was careful not to crowd her, staying on his side of the mattress, but Deanna found herself moving closer, drawn to his warmth. "Owen," she whispered into the darkness. "Yes, I am glad I met you." She felt him relax beside her. His hand found hers under the blankets. "I am glad too." That night, in the small cabin with the wind howling outside, Owen and Deanna became truly husband and wife. He was gentle and patient, taking his time, making sure she was comfortable. And Deanna discovered that there could be tenderness between a man and woman, even when they barely knew each other. Maybe especially then, when everything was new and full of possibility. Afterward, she lay in his arms, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For seeing me. For wanting me. I have spent so long being the woman nobody wanted." Owen's arms tightened around her. "I want you. Not because I need a housekeeper or someone to cook my meals. I want you, Deanna, the brave woman who walked through a blizzard, the honest woman who faced down a bully. You." Deanna felt tears prick her eyes. She had never expected words like that. had never imagined a man might actually care about who she was as a person. "I want you too," she whispered back. "I know we barely know each other, but I do. I want to know everything about you. I want to build this life with you. Then we will." He kissed the top of her head, one day at a time. The next weeks fell into a rhythm. Deanna learned the routines of frontier life, the endless work of keeping house in a one-room cabin. She cooked meals on the small stove, washed clothes in a basin of heated water, mended Owen's shirts and socks. It was harder work than she had ever done in Philadelphia, where her family had employed servants before their financial collapse. But there was satisfaction in it. Everything she did mattered. Every meal she cooked was appreciated. Every shirt she mended was worn with gratitude. Owen worked from dawn to dusk, building up his herd. He had 5 cattle now, 3 cows and 2 young steers. He hoped to have 20 by the end of the year. He was also slowly adding to the cabin, building a small addition that would serve as a proper bedroom. "We need more space," he said one evening as they ate dinner. "Especially if we are going to have children someday." Deanna blushed. "Do you want children?" "I do. Do you?" She thought about it. Before meeting Owen, the idea of having children had been purely theoretical, part of the arrangement with Gerald. But now, imagining a child with Owen's eyes or his smile, she found herself wanting it. "Yes," she said. "I want that." Owen smiled and reached across the table to take her hand. These small gestures of affection had become natural between them. The way he touched her shoulder as he passed by, the way she would lean against him when they sat together in the evening. They were learning each other, building intimacy day by day. One morning in March, Deanna woke to the sound of horses outside. Owen was already up and dressed, peering out the window with a grim expression. "What is it?" she asked. "Hutchins and 3 of his men." Deanna's heart sank. She climbed out of bed and quickly dressed while Owen loaded his rifle. "What do you think he wants?" "Nothing good." Owen checked the rifle carefully. "Stay inside. I am not hiding while you face him alone." Owen looked at her and something passed between them. Respect, partnership, all right, but stay behind me. They walked out together. Gerald Hutchins sat on a black horse, flanked by 3 rough-looking cowboys. His face was twisted with anger. "York," he spat, "you stole my bride." "I did not steal anyone." Deanna made her own choice. "She was contractually obligated to marry me. You interfered with a legal agreement." Owen kept the rifle pointed down but ready. There was no legal contract, just an informal arrangement that Deanna chose not to honor. She is free to marry whoever she wants. You are nothing but a thief and a scoundrel. Gerald looked at Deanna with contempt. "And you are a foolish girl who will regret your choice. Look at this place. Is this better than what I offered you? A shack? Poverty?" Deanna stepped out from behind Owen. "It is better because I am with a man who treats me with kindness and respect. That is worth more than all your money." Kindness and respect do not fill your belly or keep you warm in winter. No, but hard work and love do. Deanna put her hand on Owen's shoulder. "You should leave now, Mr. Hutchins. We have nothing more to say to each other." Gerald's hand moved toward his gun. Instantly, Owen raised the rifle. "Do not," Owen said quietly. "Just turn around and ride back to your ranch. Find yourself another mail-order bride. Leave us alone." For a long moment, no one moved. Then one of Hutchins' men said quietly, "Boss, this is not worth it. Let them be." Gerald glared at them all, but finally jerked his horse's reins. "You will regret this, both of you." He spurred his horse and rode off, his men following. Owen did not lower the rifle until they were out of sight. Then he let out a long breath. "That was dangerous," Deanna said. "I know. But he needed to understand that you are my wife now and I will protect you." He turned to her. "I meant what I said. I will keep you safe, Deanna, no matter what." She kissed him then, there in the yard with the morning sun warming their faces. It was a kiss of gratitude and growing affection, and something deeper that neither of them had words for yet. "I know you will," she said. "Just as I will stand by you. We are partners, Owen, in everything," he smiled. "Partners. I like the sound of that." April brought wildflowers to the Texas plains, splashes of color across the brown landscape. Deanna had never seen anything so beautiful. She picked bouquets and put them in a jar on the table, bringing the spring inside. She was also beginning to know the neighboring families. Mrs. Chen from the general store visited one afternoon, bringing fabric for a new dress. There was a young couple, the Martins, who had a homestead 5 miles east, and old Mr. Peterson, a former cavalry soldier who lived alone and sometimes stopped by for coffee and conversation. Deanna was building a life here, putting down roots. She had friends now, people who cared about her. It was more than she had ever had in Philadelphia, where her family's fall from grace had made her a pariah. One evening, as she and Owen sat outside watching the sunset, she said, "I am happy. I did not expect to be, but I am." Owen pulled her closer. "I am happy too. These past months with you have been the best of my life. Even though I burn the biscuits half the time, even though," he laughed. "You are getting better, though." It was true. Deanna was learning, adapting. She could now make a decent stew, bake bread that was only slightly lopsided, and she had gotten quite good at mending and sewing. She was also learning to help Owen with the cattle, riding behind him on Buck to check on the herd. "I have been thinking," Owen said. "I have almost enough saved to buy 10 more cattle. If we can make it through next winter without losing any, we could start to really build something here." "How can I help?" "You already are helping. More than you know." He kissed her temple. "Having you here, having someone to work alongside, to plan with, it makes all the difference." Deanna thought about the life she had left behind. The cold social climbing of Philadelphia, the desperate hunt for a wealthy husband, the shame of her father's debts. All of it seemed so far away now, like it had happened to someone else. "Do you ever regret it?" Owen asked suddenly. "Giving up the chance to be a rich man's wife?" "Never." Deanna turned to face him. "Not once. I would choose this life, choose you 1,000 times over. Even when we are eating beans for the 5th night in a row, even then." She kissed him. "Though it would be nice to have chicken occasionally," Owen laughed. "I will see what I can do about that." In May, Deanna realized she had missed her monthly courses. She waited another week to be sure, then told Owen one evening after dinner. He stared at her. "You are certain as I can be. I think I am with child." Owen's face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing. "A baby. We are going to have a baby." Deanna laughed too, caught up in his joy. "You are happy about this?" "Happy, Deanna, I am overjoyed." He set her down gently, suddenly careful. "Are you happy?" "Yes," she realized. "Yes, I am." That night, Owen was tender and careful with her, as if she might break. Deanna found it both endearing and slightly amusing. "I am pregnant, not made of glass," she said. "I know, but I want to take care of you, both of you." He placed his hand on her still flat stomach. "Our child." Deanna covered his hand with hers. "Our child." The pregnancy was not easy. Deanna suffered from terrible nausea in the early months, and the Texas heat made her miserable as summer approached. But Owen was patient and attentive. He brought her water when she was sick, fanned her when she was hot, and took over more of the household chores when she was too tired. Mrs. Chen visited regularly, bringing advice and remedies. "Ginger tea for the nausea," she said, "and rest. You need to rest." "There is too much work to do," Deanna protested. "The work will wait. The baby will not." Mrs. Chen patted her hand. "Let your husband help you. That is what he is there for." Owen proved himself more than willing. He cooked, cleaned, and tended the cattle, all while watching Deanna with concerned eyes. She knew she was lucky. Many women faced pregnancy alone or with indifferent husbands. Owen treated her like she was precious. One hot July afternoon, Diana was resting in bed when she heard the sound of a wagon approaching. Owen went out to investigate and returned with unexpected news. "It is the stagecoach driver, the one who left you in the storm. He wants to talk to you." Deanna struggled to sit up. "What does he want?" The driver came inside, hat in hand, looking uncomfortable. He was the same weathered man who had left her that February day. "Mrs. York," he said, "I came to apologize. What I did, leaving you alone in that storm, it has been weighing on my conscience. You could have died because of my decision. I am truly sorry." Deanna studied him. She could see the genuine remorse in his face. "You were trying to get help. I should have stayed with you. I should have found another way." He twisted his hat. "I heard you ended up all right, married to York here instead of Hutchins. I am glad of that. Hutchins is not a good man. So I have learned." Deanna smiled. "I accept your apology. Everything worked out as it should have." The driver looked relieved. "Thank you, madam. That is generous of you." He nodded to Owen. "You have got a good woman there, York. Take care of her." "I intend to," Owen said firmly. After the driver left, Deanna said, "That was unexpected. Decent of him to come apologize, though." Owen sat on the edge of the bed. "Are you all right? Not too tired?" "I am fine." Deanna took his hand. "Stop worrying so much. I cannot help it. You are carrying our child. That is worth worrying about." She pulled him down for a kiss. "We are both going to be fine. I promise." As summer turned to fall, Deanna's belly grew round and obvious. She could feel the baby moving inside her, little flutters and kicks that made her gasp with wonder. Owen loved to put his hand on her belly and feel the baby move. "He is strong," Owen would say, "or she is," Deanna would counter. "Boy or girl, as long as the baby is healthy and you are safe, that is all that matters." In October, Deanna went into labor. Owen rode frantically to fetch Mrs. Chen and the midwife, a capable woman named Mrs. Rodriguez. Then he was banished from the cabin while the women worked. Deanna labored through the day and into the night. It was the hardest thing she had ever done, harder than walking through a blizzard, harder than facing down Gerald Hutchins. The pain was immense, overwhelming. But Mrs. Chen and Mrs. Rodriguez were there, encouraging her, telling her she was strong, she could do this. And finally, in the early hours of the morning, Diana heard the most beautiful sound in the world, her baby's first cry. "It is a boy," Mrs. Rodriguez said, placing the squirming, red-faced infant on Deanna's chest. "A healthy baby boy." Deanna looked down at her son, at his tiny, perfect fingers and his dark hair plastered to his head, and felt a love so fierce it took her breath away. "Hello," she whispered. "Hello, little one." Owen was allowed back in then. He stood in the doorway, staring at Deanna holding their son, and Deanna saw tears streaming down his face. "Come meet your son," she said softly. Owen crossed the room slowly, as if in a dream. He reached out to touch the baby's tiny hand, and the infant's fingers curled around his father's finger. "He is perfect," Owen whispered. "Deanna, he is perfect." "We need to name him," Deanna said. They had discussed names but had not settled on one. Now, looking at her son's face, Deanna knew what felt right. "Oliver," she said. "I want to name him Oliver." Owen smiled through his tears. "Oliver York, I like that." Mrs. Chen and Mrs. Rodriguez stayed long enough to make sure both Deanna and the baby were doing well, then left the new family alone. Owen sat on the bed beside Deanna, one arm around her shoulders, the other hand resting gently on Oliver's back. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For this. For him. For choosing me that day in San Elizario. For building this life with me." He kissed her forehead. I love you, Deanna. I know I have not said it before, but I do. I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Deanna felt tears spring to her eyes. I love you too. I think I have loved you since you carried me through the snow. You saved me, Owen, not just from the blizzard, but from a life without love or hope. We saved each other, Owen said, and now we have him. They sat together in the quiet cabin, the three of them a family. Outside, the October wind blew cold, but inside there was warmth and love and the promise of a future they would build together. The first year with Oliver was exhausting and wonderful in equal measure. He was a good baby, cheerful and healthy, but he still required constant attention. Deanna often joked that she had never known it was possible to be so tired and so happy at the same time. Owen was a devoted father. He would walk Oliver around the cabin for hours when the baby was fussy, singing old cowboy songs in his rough voice. He built a cradle for their son, carefully sanding every edge until it was smooth. He would sit and watch Oliver sleep, a look of wonder on his face. I cannot believe he is ours, he would say. They managed to expand the cattle herd to 18 head that year. It was slow progress, but progress nonetheless. Owen talked about eventually building a proper house with separate rooms and a real kitchen. Deanna encouraged these dreams, even as she knew they were years away from having the money, but she did not mind the small cabin anymore. It was home. The place where she had become a wife, a mother herself. The place where she had found love when she least expected it. When Oliver was 6 months old, they took him to San Elizario for the first time. Mrs. Chen immediately whisked him away, cooing over how much he had grown. Father Miguel blessed the baby and congratulated Owen and Deanna on their family. They ran into Mrs. Martin at the general store, and Deanna was surprised to learn that she was also expecting. "You will have to tell me everything," Mrs. Martin said eagerly. "I am so nervous about the birth." Deanna shared what she had learned, and the two women talked for nearly an hour about motherhood and babies and the challenges of frontier life. It felt good to have a friend, someone who understood this particular existence. As they were loading supplies onto their wagon, Owen suddenly stiffened. Deanna followed his gaze and saw Gerald Hutchins riding down the main street. He saw them too and deliberately turned his horse in their direction. "Just keep loading," Owen said quietly. "Ignore him." But Gerald stopped right beside their wagon. He looked at Oliver, sleeping peacefully in Diana's arms. "So this is what you chose," he said. "A squalling brat and a life of poverty." Deanna felt her temper flare. "This is what I chose, yes, and I would make the same choice again every single day. You are a fool. And you are a bitter, cruel man who will die alone because no one can stand to be around you." Deanna surprised herself with her vehemence. "I pity you, Mr. Hutchins. You have money and land, but you have nothing that matters." Gerald's face turned red. For a moment, Deanna thought he might explode, but then he simply spurred his horse and rode away without another word. Owen pulled Deanna close. "That was quite a speech." He made me angry. "No one insults my family." "Our family," Owen corrected, kissing her temple. "And I could not be prouder of you." Oliver woke up and started to fuss. Deanna bounced him gently. "Let us go home." As they drove the wagon back to their cabin, Deanna reflected on how much her life had changed. A year and a half ago, she had been a desperate woman traveling to marry a stranger. Now she had a husband she loved, a son she adored, and a life that felt full and meaningful. It was not the life she had imagined for herself. It was better. The years passed in a rhythm of seasons and growth. Oliver grew into a sturdy toddler with his father's dark hair and his mother's gray eyes. He was everywhere at once, exploring everything, getting into trouble with cheerful persistence. When Oliver was 2, Deanna realized she was pregnant again. This time, the pregnancy was easier. She knew what to expect, and her body seemed to remember what to do. Owen was just as excited and protective as he had been the first time. "Maybe a girl this time," he would say hopefully. "We will love whoever we get," Deanna would reply. In the spring of 1881, Diana gave birth to a daughter. The labor was shorter this time, though no less intense. When Mrs. Rodriguez placed the baby in her arms, Deanna felt that same overwhelming rush of love. "What should we name her?" Owen asked, looking at his daughter with awe. "Dorothy," Deanna said. "Dorothy Elizabeth York, Dorothy." Owen tested the name. "Yes, that is perfect." Oliver was fascinated by his baby sister. He would sit beside her cradle for hours watching her sleep. "Baby," he would say proudly, pointing. "My baby." "Your sister," Deanna would correct gently. "My sister," Oliver would repeat solemnly. The cabin had been expanded by now, with a separate bedroom for Deanna and Owen and a loft space where Oliver slept. It was not grand, but it was comfortable. Owen had also built a proper barn for the cattle, which now numbered nearly 30 head. They were not rich, but they were no longer scraping by either. Owen's hard work was paying off. He had hired a young man named Sam to help with the cattle, and he talked about building a real house within the next few years. "We need more space now that we have 2 children," he said one evening as they sat outside, watching Oliver chase fireflies. "3 children," Deanna said quietly. Owen turned to her sharply. "You are pregnant again." "Yes, I just realized this week." He whooped and picked her up, spinning her around until she laughingly begged him to stop. "3 children, Deanna. We are going to need a much bigger house." This pregnancy was different from the first 2. Deanna was more tired, more uncomfortable. Owen insisted she rest more, taking on even more of the household work. Mrs. Chen visited regularly, bringing tonics and advice. "Some pregnancies are harder than others," she said. "Listen to your body." Deanna tried to, but there was so much to do. 2 young children required constant attention, and the household did not run itself. She pushed through the exhaustion, determined to keep everything together. Owen noticed. "You need to slow down," he said one evening. "You are going to make yourself sick." "I am fine." "You are not fine. You are exhausted." He took her hands. "Deanna, please let me help more. Let Mrs. Martin help. You do not have to do everything yourself." Deanna felt tears prick her eyes. "I do not want to be weak." "Accepting help is not weak. It is smart." He pulled her close. "You are the strongest person I know, but even strong people need support sometimes." Deanna nodded against his chest. "All right, I will try." Mrs. Martin did come to help, bringing her own toddler daughter to play with Oliver. The 2 women worked together, cooking and cleaning while the children played. Deanna found herself grateful for the company and the assistance. In November of 1881, Diana went into labor earlier than expected. Owen rode for Mrs. Rodriguez in a panic, leaving Diana with Mrs. Martin and Mrs. Chen, who had been visiting when the pain started. This birth was harder than the previous 2. The baby was in a difficult position, and Deanna labored for hours with little progress. At one point, she was so exhausted she wanted to give up. "You can do this," Mrs. Rodriguez said firmly. "Your baby needs you to do this." Deanna found strength she did not know she had. She pushed through the pain, through the exhaustion, through the fear. And finally, she heard a baby crying. "Another boy," Mrs. Rodriguez said, placing the infant on Deanna's chest. "A fighter, just like his mother." Deanna looked at her son. He was smaller than Oliver and Dorothy had been, but he was breathing strongly, his face red with indignation at being born. "Oscar," she whispered. "His name is Oscar." When Owen was allowed back in, he immediately went to Deanna, checking that she was all right before even looking at the baby. "I am fine," Deanna assured him. "We are both fine. Meet your son." Owen looked at Oscar and smiled. "He looks angry. He is probably hungry." Deanna was already trying to nurse him, but the baby was having trouble latching. Mrs. Rodriguez helped, showing Diana a different position, and finally Oscar began to eat. "3 children," Owen said, sitting beside Deanna. "We have 3 children. We certainly do." Deanna felt exhausted but happy. "Our family is complete." Owen kissed her. "You are amazing. I hope you know that. I could not do it without you. We do it together. Always." The next few years were chaotic and wonderful. 3 children under 5 kept Diana constantly busy, but she had never been happier. Her days were filled with laughter and mess, and the sweet exhaustion of motherhood. Owen's cattle operation continued to grow. By 1884, they had 70 head, and Owen had hired 2 more men to help. He was also serving on the San Elizario Town Council, respected as a fair and honest man. True to his promise, Owen built them a proper house. It had 4 bedrooms, a separate kitchen, and even a parlor. Deanna cried when she saw it finished, overwhelmed by how far they had come from that tiny cabin. "You like it?" Owen asked anxiously. "I love it. Owen, it is beautiful." They moved in during the summer of 1884, and Deanna spent weeks arranging their belongings and making the house into a home. The children each had their own room, though Dorothy insisted on sleeping in Oliver's room most nights anyway. One evening, after the children were in bed, Owen and Deanna sat on the porch of their new house, watching the sunset. "You remember that day in the blizzard?" Owen asked. "Of course. How could I forget? I think about it sometimes. How easily things could have gone differently. If I had not been looking out my window at that exact moment, if you had not walked toward my cabin, if you had married Hutchins instead." Deanna shuddered. "I try not to think about that last one. I heard he died last month. Heart attack. I am sorry to hear that." And she was, in a distant way. Gerald Hutchins had been a cruel man, but death was still sad. "I am not." Owen took her hand. "I know that makes me sound heartless, but I am not sorry. He tried to buy you like property. He would have made your life miserable. Instead, I found you. I found this life." Deanna gestured at the house, the land, the life they had built. "I found happiness I never expected to have." Owen pulled her close. "We found each other. That frozen stagecoach, that terrible blizzard, it brought us together. I will always be grateful for that storm." "So will I." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars come out. Deanna thought about how much had changed since that February day in 1878. She had been so lost then, so desperate. She had thought she was traveling to her doom. Instead, she had found her home. Oliver came running out onto the porch. "Mama, Dorothy is crying. She says she had a bad dream." Deanna stood. "I will go to her." "I will come too," Owen said. They went inside together, their oldest son leading the way. Deanna soothed Dorothy back to sleep while Owen checked on Oscar. Then they returned to their own room, the master bedroom in the house Owen had built with his own hands. As they lay in bed together, Deanna said, "Do you think the children will understand someday? How lucky we are. They will understand that they are loved. That is what matters." "I was the bride nobody wanted," Deanna said softly. "But you wanted me most." Owen turned to face her. "I did not just want you, Deanna. I needed you. My life was empty before you. Now it is full of everything that matters. You, our children, this family we have built. You are the best thing that ever happened to me. You saved me. No, we saved each other." Deanna kissed him, a kiss full of love and gratitude and the deep contentment of a life well lived. They had started with nothing but hope and determination. Now they had everything. The years continued to pass. The children grew. Oliver became a serious, responsible boy who loved working with the cattle. Dorothy was bright and curious, always asking questions. Oscar was the wild one, climbing everything, getting into constant mischief. Deanna watched her children grow with a mixture of pride and wistfulness. They were becoming their own people, with their own dreams and personalities. Oliver talked about expanding the ranch someday. Dorothy wanted to be a teacher. Oscar just wanted adventure. Owen's hair was starting to show gray at the temples. Deanna found a few silver threads in her own brown hair. They were getting older, but they were aging together, partners in every sense of the word. In 1890, when Oliver was 13, Deanna and Owen had a long conversation about the ranch and the future. "I want to put the ranch in all the children's names," Owen said. "This is their legacy. Everything we have built, it is for them." "That is a good idea," Deanna agreed. "But we should also make sure they know the story. How we met, how we built this life. I do not want them to take it for granted." So that evening, with all three children gathered around the kitchen table, Deanna and Owen told them the whole story. About the frozen stagecoach, the blizzard, the cabin. About Gerald Hutchins and the choice Deanna had made. About courage and love and building a life from nothing. The children listened, wide-eyed. "So Mama almost died?" Dorothy asked. "Yes," Deanna said, "but your father saved me." "And then you got married right away." Oliver looked skeptical. "That seems fast." "Sometimes you just know," Owen said, looking at Deanna. "When you meet the right person, you know." "That is so romantic," Dorothy sighed. Oscar just said, "I am glad you did not marry that other man." "He sounds mean." "He was mean," Deanna agreed. "And I am very glad I married your father instead." Later, after the children were in bed, Deanna and Owen sat on the porch as they so often did. "You think they understood?" Deanna asked. "They are children. They will not fully understand until they are older. But someday, when they fall in love themselves, they will remember. They will know that true love is worth taking risks for." Deanna leaned her head on Owen's shoulder. "I love our life. I love it too, and I love you. I love you more." "Impossible." They laughed together, comfortable in the way of long married couples. They had been through so much together. Hard winters and dry summers, sick children and money troubles, arguments and reconciliations. Through it all, they had remained partners, lovers, best friends. The ranch continued to prosper. By the mid-1890s, York Ranch was one of the most successful operations in the region. Owen was known as a fair employer and an honest dealer. Diana was respected as a capable woman who had helped build the ranch from nothing. They added more rooms to the house over the years as the children grew and needed space. Diana planted a garden that became the envy of the county. Owen built a proper barn and corrals. They acquired chickens and pigs and even a few sheep. The children grew into young adults. Oliver, at 17, was already working the ranch full-time alongside his father. Dorothy, at 15, was excelling in school and talking about attending teachers' college. Oscar, at 13, was still getting into trouble but showed promise as a horseman. Deanna and Owen talked sometimes about what would happen when the children left to start their own lives. The house would feel empty without them, but they would face that together, just as they had faced everything else. One evening in the spring of 1897, nearly 20 years after that blizzard had changed Deanna's life, she and Owen took a rare evening to themselves. They rode out to the place where Owen's old cabin had stood. It was gone now, torn down years ago, but they both remembered it. "Do you ever think about that night?" Deanna asked. "The night I stumbled out of the blizzard all the time." Owen dismounted and helped Deanna down. "I think about how close I came to not looking out that window, how I almost did not see you. How different our lives would be if things had gone just slightly differently." "I would be dead," Deanna said simply. "Or married to Gerald Hutchins, which might have been worse." I would still be alone in that cabin, working for wages, dreaming of a future I was not sure would ever come. Owen pulled her close. You changed everything for me, Deanna. You gave me purpose, family, love. You gave me a reason to build instead of just survive. You gave me those same things. You gave me a life I never imagined I could have. Deanna looked up at the stars, the same stars that had shone on them that long ago February night. I was so scared then, so lost. I thought I had no future. Now look at us. A ranch, 3 wonderful children, a life full of meaning. Owen kissed her forehead. The bride nobody wanted turned out to be the only woman I ever needed. Deanna felt tears in her eyes. You always know exactly what to say. I have had 20 years to practice. They stood there together in the gathering darkness, surrounded by the land they had built into a home. The wind whispered through the grass, carrying the scent of sage and spring flowers. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called. Should we head back? Owen asked. The children will wonder where we are in a minute. Deanna wanted to hold onto this moment, this perfect encapsulation of their love and their life. Let us stay just a little longer. So they stayed, wrapped in each other's arms, 2 people who had found each other in the most unlikely way and built something beautiful from that chance meeting. The frozen stagecoach, the desperate walk through the blizzard, the kind cowboy who had offered shelter and hope, it had all led to this. A love story written in the harsh landscape of the Texas frontier. A partnership forged in hardship and strengthened by time. A family built on courage and choice and commitment. When they finally rode back to the ranch house, they could see warm light glowing in the windows. Their children were inside, safe and loved. Their life, everything they had worked for, was waiting. Owen helped Deanna dismount and they walked hand in hand to the house they had built together. Welcome home, Owen said, opening the door. I have been home for 20 years, Deanna replied. Ever since the day a cowboy wanted me most. They stepped inside together, into the warmth and noise and beautiful chaos of their family. Oliver was arguing with Dorothy about something. Oscar was trying to convince them both to play a card game. The house smelled of bread and coffee and home. Deanna looked at Owen and saw her own contentment reflected in his eyes. They had built this, the 2 of them, starting from nothing but hope and determination and unexpected love. It was more than either of them had dreamed of that frozen February day. It was everything. As the evening wore on and the children eventually settled, Deanna and Owen prepared for bed in the routine they had perfected over 2 decades. They moved around each other with the ease of long practice, anticipating needs, sharing small touches and smiles. When they finally lay down together, Owen pulled Deanna close. Thank you, he said, as he had said so many times over the years. For what? Deanna asked, as she always did. For walking through that blizzard, for choosing me, for building this life with me, for 20 years of happiness. He kissed her softly. For everything. The pleasure has been entirely mine, Deanna whispered back. They fell asleep as they had every night for 20 years, wrapped in each other's arms, secure in their love, grateful for the twist of fate that had brought them together. Outside, the Texas night was clear and still. The stars shone bright over York Ranch, over the house that love had built, over the land that hard work had tamed. The blizzard that had nearly killed Deanna had instead brought her to life. The frozen stagecoach that had held the bride nobody wanted had delivered her to the cowboy who wanted her most. And they lived happily ever after, partners and lovers, building their legacy together, raising their children to understand the value of courage and love and hard work. The York family became a fixture of San Elizario, respected and beloved, known for their integrity and generosity. Oliver eventually married and took over the ranch with his father's blessing, continuing to build on the foundation his parents had laid. Dorothy became a teacher as she had dreamed, opening a school in San Elizario and educating a generation of children. Oscar found his adventure, becoming a horse trainer of some renown before eventually returning home to settle down with a wife of his own. Deanna and Owen grew old together, their love deepening with each passing year. They became grandparents, then great-grandparents, watching their legacy grow and spread. They never forgot where they had started, never took for granted the miracle of their meeting. On their 40th wedding anniversary in 1918, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, someone asked Owen what the secret to a long and happy marriage was. He looked at Deanna, his hair now white, his face lined with age but his eyes still warm with love. "Choose the right partner," he said. "Someone who makes you better, someone who stands beside you through everything, someone you respect and admire as much as you love. And be willing to take a chance," Deanna added, taking his hand. "Sometimes the best things in life come from the choices that scare us most." Their children and grandchildren listened, not fully understanding perhaps, but absorbing the wisdom nonetheless. The story of Owen and Deanna York, the cowboy and the desperate bride who had found each other in a blizzard, became family legend, passed down through generations. And when Deanna and Owen finally passed, years later, within months of each other because neither could bear to be without the other for long, they were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the ranch they had built together. Their headstone read simply, "Owen York and Deanna York, partners in life and love together, they built a legacy the frozen stagecoach had long since been forgotten, just another relic of the Old West." But the love it had inadvertently created lived on in the family that bore the York name, in the ranch that still operated, in the stories told around dinner tables about courage and choice, and the power of love to transform everything. Deanna had been the bride nobody wanted, traveling west to a loveless marriage. But Owen had wanted her most, had seen her worth when she could not see it herself. And together, they had created something beautiful from the ashes of desperation. Their story was one of thousands played out across the American frontier, but it was uniquely theirs. A testament to the fact that sometimes the worst circumstances can lead to the best outcomes, that love can bloom in the most unlikely places, that taking a chance on someone, on yourself, on a future you cannot quite see, can lead to everything you never knew you needed. The ranch still stands today, operated by York descendants who remember the story of their ancestors. The house Owen built has been expanded and updated, but the bones of it remain, a testament to one man's love for his family. The land that Deanna first saw covered in snow now blooms every spring, just as her love for Owen bloomed in that tiny cabin so many years ago. And if you visit on a quiet evening when the wind whispers through the Texas grass, locals will tell you that you can still feel the love that built this place. The love between a desperate woman and a kind cowboy. The love that started with a frozen stagecoach and a terrible blizzard and grew into a legacy that has lasted generations. It is a reminder that sometimes, being the one nobody wants means you are exactly where you need to be, waiting for the one person who wants you most. And when you find that person, when you have the courage to choose love over security, hope over fear, partnership over loneliness, you can build something that lasts forever. Owen and Deanna York proved that. Their love story, born in hardship and nurtured through decades of partnership, showed that the best love stories are not about grand gestures or perfect circumstances. They are about two people who choose each other, day after day, through good times and bad, through struggle and triumph, through everything life throws at them. They choose each other, and that choice, That commitment, that love, becomes the foundation for everything else. For family, for legacy, for a life well lived. That is what the frozen stagecoach delivered in the end. Not just a bride to a cowboy, but a partner to a partner. Not just a woman seeking security, but a woman finding love. Not just two lonely people coming together out of necessity, but two souls recognizing each other and choosing to build something beautiful together. And that is the true legacy of Owen and Diana York. Not the ranch, not the wealth they accumulated, not even the children and grandchildren who carry on their name. Their true legacy is the proof that love, real love, the kind that lasts and grows and sustains, is possible for anyone willing to take the risk. Even, or perhaps especially, for the bride nobody wanted and the cowboy who wanted her most.